Morning, everybody. We're at Parkin by Radisson, and today we're talking about parenting. We can never have enough conversations about this topic because as a parent, I know that it's an ever-evolving role, and every day, every week, you're being challenged by this character that's just forming this personality, and you need to take that into consideration. So we have a psychotherapist in the building. Her name is Dr. Carol Chakua, and she runs the Being Parenting classes, which take place every quarter. And we have her in studio, which means we're going to get to ask all the questions that we've been hungry for. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
How are you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling great. It's a bright, beautiful morning.
Yeah, it's a good morning. I saw you had your cup of coffee, almost like ready to gear you up for the conversation
yes.
that we're about to have. So first question to you, tell us a little bit more about Being Parenting. What exactly is it?
Being Parenting is a program. It's a parenting program. And we focus first and foremost on the parent, their wellness, where are they at, what's going on with them, because there are many parenting programs. And what sets us apart is that we actually really look at what's going on with the parent first, because we believe that what's going on with the parent determines a lot the child's behavior and the outcomes of their behavior. Okay. So we purely focus on the parent. Okay. Not purely though, but you know, a huge portion of it. Yeah, and then we also do focus on the child and also equipping the child, and we keep equipping the parent on what to do, just, you know, the parenting tools, the discipline techniques, and all those other strategies. Okay. Yes.
Ooh, discipline, that's a tough one. We'll get into that in a bit. But I would love to hear from you. What does the ultimate wholesome parenting interaction look like? If you were to paint that picture, what does that look like?
Ultimate, so therefore it's a process to get there. Okay. Now the ultimate wholesome parent is a parent who, one, is very self-aware. Okay. So they're aware of what is going on with them, what messages are going on inside of them, what's going on with their heart, with their emotions. They have a high level of self-awareness, how they are interpreting their children's behavior, because that really determines the decisions they make about the child's behavior. A wholesome parent is the one who really forgives themselves like every time, is very compassionate with themselves, is very you know, they allow themselves moment by moment to reflect on what is going on with them, with their child, and therefore they're able to sort of like take a continuous self-audit. And that sounds, I know, a lot of information, or it looks like something that it's too much for a parent to do. But at Being Parenting, we say it is a process. You start small, you start getting more aware of yourself and what is going on with you. And then as you keep going, it becomes a habit over time.
Right. Yeah. Ooh, that self-awareness bit really caught me. And also forgiving yourself, because I think that's part of the journey. Yes. So tell me, would you then say that most parents go wrong by not really being vulnerable, being honest with themselves? Is that where where the problem lies?
Yes, I believe that that's really where we get it wrong, where we are so focused on what is going on externally, but not really so much on what's going on with us. And the moment we start with us and just learn to be kinder to ourselves, learn to be more real. I mean, we say in Being Parenting, there's no such thing as a perfect parent, but there's a real parent. And a real parent is the one who is able to say, oops, I goofed there. Oops, okay, now, right now, I'm very angry. Right now, I can hear my voice and I'm yelling right now. And I know that now this is more than what the child has done. So I'm able to actually backtrack and step back and say, okay, fine. Let me take a deep breath and just see what exactly is going on with me. Because we we focus a lot on the moment by moment interactions between a child and a parent, and not so much on when the child behaves like this, how many chapas do you give them? Or when the child behaves like this, what kind of privileges do you withdraw? That comes really towards the end of the program. But in the beginning, when a parent comes, we talk about, give me that one intense moment that you've had with your child. What happened? How did it play out? And as it was playing out, we actually help them figure out what was going on in your mind at that time. And it's very surprising because for most of them, it's the first time they're actually able to step back and be like, okay, let's now forget a bit about what happened with the child, but now what was happening with me? Because before I reacted, I felt something. What did I feel? Where were the feelings coming from? Before I felt, I thought something. What were those thoughts? And trust me, if you didn't think a certain way, you wouldn't feel a certain way, and therefore you wouldn't react a certain way. Yeah. So we just really help our parents to go back, look within themselves, because when you sort that out, then the relationships and the outcomes with your children become a lot more healthier, fun, and less regret, less guilt, Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That peeling back the layers and trying to understand where did that come from, or why did you react that way, ultimately betters your relationship with your children. Would you say that it also influences how they handle other situations too? That that they end up mimicking that?
Oh, they are, for sure. For sure. How we are showing up in the moment, sort of the children just soak that in. So it would be one thing to say, don't yell, be kind and all that. But as you're showing up at that moment, that's what really they soak in, and that's what ultimately will come out. And even with us, we will say, my parents treated me a certain way, I will never do that again. And you're so conscious about it. But in the moment when push comes to shove, you react in the same exact way, because that's what you have internalized. So we want to be able to get parents to sort of figure out, in fact, we call them the neck down experiences. So we have neck up and neck down. So neck down experiences is really what's going on inside of you and in your heart. Once you're able to figure out your neck down experiences, your struggles, your stresses, things that are happening currently within you and even outside of you that are impacting how you are interpreting the child's behavior. So that is what we really help a parent, just to be more self-aware, to be more conscious of their moment by moment interactions with their children.
Right. Okay, so take us through that moment, that intense moment that you just talked about. How should a parent go about it? Because a lot of times you don't even feel yourself reacting. You just see that, oh, okay, so that's what happened. It's almost like you're not there in the moment. So what are your tips for parents to be more present and to handle those difficult situations?
Usually an intense moment usually happens and you move on, and then later is when the regrets start coming. But then you can always go back to that moment. For example, a child did this and I yelled at them, or I just automatically slapped them, or whatever it is that you did. And then now you need to be able to go back and say, okay, so what exactly happened? And what happened, usually we say, is the reaction. Okay, so the reaction is usually at the tip, very tip, at the tip. When you think about an iceberg, so it's at the tip of the iceberg. So said, okay, now there's a lot more going on beneath the reaction than just how I reacted. And so what we take, actually we do this during our free open days, just taking parents step by step through. Let's describe that intense moment. So once we describe the intense moment, I ask them, just before you reacted, what did you feel? Okay? And for most of them, it is anger. I felt so angry. I felt so frustrated. Okay? And so we're able to, first of all, acknowledge that before I reacted, I felt a certain way. And Sharon, you can't react until you feel a certain way. Okay, so we really unpack that space of feelings, and mostly when we react, it's anger that's driving us.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know, underlying that anger could be insecurity, could be fear, could be, you know,
hurt,
shame, embarrassment
pain.
that a child acted a certain way. Okay, and so we need to be able to be clear that, you know what, we felt a certain way.
Okay, and so in that moment where you feel that anger rising in you and you're about to react, what you're saying is what you should do in that moment is stop first and try and understand, where is that coming from?
Yes.
Is it embarrassment? Is it, okay, so what if you do realize like, wow, I think I'm embarrassed because, you know, of the way she talked back in front of my family, or he talked back in front of my family.
Yes.
What then, how then should you react?
Now, before we felt,
Okay.
we thought. So we're going down the iceberg.
Oh,
okay.
so there's still layers.
there's still
Okay,
layers.
okay.
Okay. So there's the reaction, and then there's the feeling.
Yeah.
And before you felt, you thought. There are thoughts that ran through your mind. And thoughts are really just our own personal interpretation of the event.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So trust me, you would not feel angry if you didn't think he's just trying to make me angry.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Or you wouldn't feel embarrassed if you did not think, oh my gosh, what are all these people going to think about me?
Exactly.
You would not feel anxious if you did not think that, you know what, this child is going to drop out of school in Form 3. So there's a lot of thoughts that go on in our minds before even we feel. And so we just get our parents to go through that moment of, and you know, every feeling is attached to a thought.
Okay.
So there's no thought,
Right.
there's no feeling without a thought.
Right.
Okay.
So reaction,
Reaction,
the tip,
yes.
feeling,
Yes.
thought.
Thought.
And then at this point then is your advice to try and understand like why am I thinking that? Where is that coming from? And am I carrying, you know, my experiences and projecting that?
Correct.
Oh my God.
So we go down again.
Oh wow,
Do you
Dr.
want
Carol, you're really like in that moment. It's like you have to really be centered and to be self-aware. Like
Exactly, it's self-awareness, and the thing is, we don't want to burden you with all that at once, and that's why the whole program is a step-by-step
Right.
process, so that you're not like, oh my gosh, now I need to, you know, start thinking.
This is a lot.
Yeah.
So what if you just know that you are not the most patient person, or perhaps you're more prone to going, you know, having anxiety, and you just know it because we know ourselves. Can we unlearn that? Are there things that are, you know, just so innate that they're part of us, and other things that we can unlearn about ourselves?
Yes, we can unlearn, and that's the beauty of human nature, is that when we expose ourselves to intentional and specific experiences, because you have mentioned the word unlearn, that means that was learned, okay? And the learning took time, it was a process, it came from somewhere. Therefore, if you can learn something, you can definitely unlearn it. So it has to be specific, intentional process. And I like what you said, when you are aware that you are prone to being impatient and all that.
Yeah.
So really the first thing is to be aware and to acknowledge that, hey, I'm not the most patient of people, you know, and therefore, yes, you can unlearn. And one of the ways we do it is, first of all, figure out where is it coming from in the first place, because it came from somewhere.
This is where therapy comes into play.
This is where therapy comes into play. But you know, sometimes a lot of people really try to stray away from therapy. So we want to be able to help them still walk down this process without necessarily think that, you know what, I'm being shrunk, you know, I'm going to see a shrink, and therefore it's because of all this. But you can still unlearn without necessarily going through therapy, you know, just allowing yourself to the experiences that help you unlearn the things that you have learned.
Okay. And so that essentially means that all these things, traits that maybe we're not so proud of in ourselves, we can undo it or unlearn them, and that there's nothing that's too innate.
Definitely.
Okay.
And when we think about that about ourselves, then it becomes easy for us to see also that in our children. You know, because if our children have tendencies that, they're staying on and they're not going away. We need to be able to have faith that those things can also be unlearned. Because that's one of the thoughts that goes on in the parent's mind of, oh my gosh, this has gone too long, he will never change. But when I start by me saying, I will work on this and I can learn, then you're in a better position to transfer that to your child.
Right. Right. Okay, well, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be delving deeper into the world of discipline. What do you do in that when that intense moment shows up and you've gone through all those, demystifying the feelings and the thoughts? What next? We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, everybody. We're at Park Inn by Radisson, and we're talking about kids and parents and how to go about it. We're with Dr. Carol Chakua. In this next segment, we're delving deep into discipline. I want to understand how important is it to try and have an idea of why kids misbehave when it comes to disciplining? Is that an important element to the process of discipline?
Yes, it is. And without understanding why, you'll never really know what to do about it. Because for every why, there's a reason.
So how do you go about figuring out the why? Maybe, say for instance, example, you start to realize that your child has been nicking money here and there from your wallet, from the table. How do you then try and figure out the why? Because a lot of times sitting down, they're not going to be like, Mama, Dad, this is what I've been going through, this is what I've been feeling. So how do you unpack that?
Yeah, I think it's in generally looking at why children misbehave in the first place, and knowing that aside from meeting their basic needs, food, water, shelter and all that, then once those needs are met, they have emotional needs that need to be met. Okay, and so those are the emotional needs that if they're not filled or if they're not met in the appropriate ways, a child, because they are still very young, they are not developed intellectually to be able to communicate their needs, they will figure out a way for those needs to be met either way, whether it is in good behavior or in bad behavior. Okay, and most of the time it will be pushing the boundaries until those needs are met. So it's really looking at what are the emotional needs of children. Okay. So
how do you start that journey? Where do you start?
I think that one is just, first of all, how, again, for me, I always go back to the parent. What are your emotional needs, and how are those needs, how are you meeting those needs? We have a basic need for attention. Right. Okay, so if I have a need for attention, how do I meet that need? Because even, we also have adult tantrums, right?
Oh, don't I know that?
We do, and so how do we get those needs met? And so when you look at a child's behavior, whether it's picking other people's things, whether it's tantrums and all that, there has to probably there is an underlying need there of, hey, I am here, I am special. Do you recognize me? Do you really see me for who I really am? Yeah. So that's a need for attention. Wow. There's also the need for belonging, where like in this space, where do I fit? And that's where you see a lot of sibling rivalry, because they're like, now who is going, there's a lot of these fights for attention, fight for belonging. In this space, where do I belong? In this family, do I really belong? And do you people really notice me? And if you don't notice me, let me do something so that you really notice me. And at that point, it's not that a child is saying, okay, now that they're not noticing me, this is what I'm going to do. Right. All of these behaviors are unconscious. Yeah. Then there's also the need for control. Like, do I make a difference here? Okay, and that's when you, do I have personal power? Do I have power? Do these people recognize that I'm a powerful person? Right. And actually, the statement the child is making at that time is, I am powerful. Yeah. And that's where you see a lot of back talk, rebellion, talking back at you, the need for negotiation, and the 2-year-old will be like, no, I'm gonna do it by myself. So we need first of all to recognize that this is not, just outright disobedience. There's an underlying need that the children has. And so we need to be able now to figure out, how do I actually get to meet those needs?
You said something that really resonated with me, which is that a lot of times what the parent doesn't even realize is that they also have their emotional needs that aren't being met, and that ultimately could be transmitted to, you know, that relationship with the child or to the child. And as you were talking, it also got me curious about the relationship between mother and daughter, and how, I don't know if I'm being presumptuous here, but it feels like there's a stage at which it starts to get quite tense between mom and mothers and their daughters. And I think what you were saying made me wonder, is it because that there are needs on both parts that are trying to be met, or, you know, those emotional needs, whether they both are trying to show that they have power, they both are trying to show that, you know, are you hearing me? Do I have your attention? Yeah. Is there a link there, or am I just making up my own?
I think that it does happen not just with mother and child, but with mother and daughter, mother and son, father and daughter, father and son.
Oh, so both really?
All relationships. Yeah, there is. But you're correct in saying that for as long as that need is not being met in us, or we haven't figured out how to meet that need, then it becomes very hard for us to even be able to meet that need in the child. And therefore we get uncomfortable when they are needing attention, and we also are needing attention, and we don't have healthy ways of feeling that attention. We become reactive to them. Okay, and so we go, you're just seeking attention, or grow up, or things like that. But really you're telling that to yourself. Wow. Okay? Wow. Yeah, and I always say, you cannot pour from an empty cup. You figure yourself out. There is no hurry. Okay, figure yourself out first. Focus on yourself. Focus on your wellness. Focus on how you are relating to others and how you're responding to others. Focus on any pain that you could be carrying from the past or in the present. Focus on giving yourself tools to be able to cope healthily with the issues that are going on, or the issues that you have not resolved. And when you're clearer about that space, you see the neck down experiences, when you're clearer about that space, then you can be able to really show up better with your child, because our children's behavior are really a function of what's going on with us. And I know that looks like, oh my gosh, that's too much, a burden. But you know what? It takes intentionality to be able to start working on this. And once you work on this, then you parent with a lot more freedom. You look at your children's behaviors from a relaxed space, and you'll be like, I can deal with this because I'm okay. Yeah. Because I am enough. In fact, our tagline is, I am enough.
I am enough. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
You have shared that it's important that parents discipline from a space of intention and purpose, and that there ought to be more flexibility than rigidity. Yes. Can you tell us more about that?
We have this notion, first of all, that discipline is that thing you do to a child to change their behavior. So that's it's a myth, okay? So we say, I disciplined the child by taking away their privileges, or their phone. Yes. And as long as we think about it as just the end thing that we do, then again we are not being purposeful, because discipline really it's a whole process. Discipline is a process of bringing in different experiences in the child's life, positive and negative, so that you can nurture in them. In fact, we call it an internal compass, a healthy internal guidance in them.
Okay.
So when you're looking at discipline, if you look at it only as the chapa or the privileges or the timeout and all that, then we're always focused on, once I do this, then I will, the behavior will change. So I always encourage parents to look at discipline in terms of what are the many experiences that you're bringing into a child's space so that they can learn. And learning is a process, okay? It's a continuous process. So we want to be able to discipline purposefully by, first of all, asking ourselves, why did my child behave this way? Okay, and then that even gives you a lot more compassion towards the child. So it's not so much about fixing the child, but about empowering the child and nurturing, so that when they encounter that situation next time, there's a lot more to learn from that situation other than I'll get into trouble, I'll be chapward and all that. So that they're not just behaving right because they're afraid of the negative consequence. And we also look at another reason children misbehave really is because they're very discouraged. Okay, they're just feeling, no matter what I do, it's not going to make a difference. And so we get parents to really focus on encouraging their children more, therefore catch them doing what is right. I mean, out of the 3 days that they haven't made their bed, there's that one day they made it and it looks rumpled. I mean, make a big deal out of it. Like, oh my gosh, you actually thought about it. You made the bed, So that discipline is not just always the negative things that we do, but also the positive, because we want to encourage them to start, doing that, which we are,
I'm curious to hear more about the positive discipline. Can you give us another example of how parents can positively discipline their children?
One is really by encouraging them. Another way is by setting them up for success.
Oh.
Yes.
How?
For example, you want your child to follow a certain routine. For example, in the morning, you want to be out of the house by 7:30. Okay.
Oh, and this is a good one. I'm sure there's so many parents who are like the struggle.
Yes,
every morning.
it's a struggle. Yeah. So first of all, I always say, what's going on within you? For me, I'm not going to give you tips until I figure out what's really going on with you. What does the morning routine mean for you? What are you telling yourself in the morning, for example? Oh my gosh, my boss, yesterday I didn't finish. So already that gets into the environment of that morning. So I'm assuming that you've taken care of.
Yes.
Okay?
Great.
Because even in our classes, the tips come towards the end of the program.
Yeah.
The 70% of it is what's going on with you until we are clear. So anyway, so morning routine, you want to be able, if you want to be out by 7:30, set your child up for success, but not by number one, being very clear about what your expectations are. So what time are we waking up? We're waking up at 6:30 so that we are out by 7:30. So we work it backward. And remember, with every child, because of course, it's also according to age.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say we're talking a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
So that's the example. They are beginning to develop a lot more independence. So we want to be able to tell them, first of all, you set them up by getting them a clock, an alarm clock, and teaching them how to set it. Okay. So, because we do these things so unintentionally. Oh, everyone needs to wake up at this time. But there's very specific things that you can do, okay? And, it doesn't have to be a super expensive or super fancy watch or whatever, or a clock. Just get them something and say, this is when to read the time. You can set it up. And you know what you're doing by even just allowing them to wake themselves up? You're meeting the control need. Okay, remember the needs we talked about? Yeah, they're now in control of the time that they are waking up. Okay, and so we do that, and then you say, so you have this, if they shower in the morning, so we're like this and this. So setting them up for success is helping them come up with a routine. You work together. Okay, you have the alarm clock, you're waking up at a certain time. This is the time for breakfast. And I always say, out of 7 days in a week, allow them to choose breakfast once or twice. Then the rest is up to you, because we want to be able to let them eat healthy. But again, part of giving them control is to allow them to choose to pick at something that they're doing. So that's more positive than waking up every morning and making a lot of noise. Because there's this thing we call morning mania. Like, there's so much drama in the morning, and it's just consistently happening. So step back and ask yourself, what is it that I can do? Can I do that? We do the routine and we say, and then are we putting our books in the bag the night before, or have we done all these things? Then come up with a schedule where they can tick. There's a checkbox, and so make it just really specific so that we are coming alongside the child rather than coming at them.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
Wow.
Coming alongside, supporting them so that we are building a lot more. So for me, that is what discipline is.
And positive discipline,
Yes.
specifically.
Yes.
So a couple months ago, we had Dr. Ayuya come and share a little bit about child discipline. And one of the things that she said that really struck me was that spanking, hitting is a no-no. And I was curious to know your thoughts on that.
Okay. Yeah,
It's a bit of a
tough
one, but
and that's okay. I would say that first of all, in what frame of mind are you as you're spanking and hitting? There's a lot of research that is against spanking and hitting, and of course for obvious reasons, because that's really teaching a child that the only way to solve problems is by using violence, okay, or inflicting pain, and therefore it just cuts off that whole other process of conflict resolution, thinking through your choices and all that. So based on that research, it is really not advisable to use spanking as a go-to, because I believe that, you see, trust me, spanking is one sure way of getting your child to do something. Yeah. So what happens is that when we have that option, then we keep using it over and over. So even as parents, we don't grow in that space. We don't grow in the space of helping our children to work through conflict resolution, to work through decision making, because you're like, I have reached my end, I spank you. Right. I have reached my end, I spank you. Right. So I always say, you know what, at the end of the day, every parent, it is your decision, it is up to you to decide what it is that you want to do. But first of all, you need to know that there's a lot of research that says that there's a lot of negative outcome for spanking, especially when it is done in an environment of anger and an environment of reactivity. And therefore, you want to be able to say, let me first of all figure out how I can resolve this thing or this issue, this discipline issue from, using other means. And that's where we talk about positive discipline. But, even withdrawal of privileges can be done in anger. So for me, it's not so much the ultimate spanking, but it is what environment am I giving this this punishment or this discipline, you know. If I'm giving it in a space of so much fighting and so much negativity, it doesn't matter that I withdrew privileges. If I am yelling while I'm telling the child to go to the room, it's still just as bad as spanking. So I stay away from focusing on that actual consequence, and I focus much more on what is the environment. What kind of environment are you bringing into this whole discipline situation or into this moment that I am having with my children? But also we need to be aware of a lot of research that shows that there are negative outcomes.
Okay, well, we have to take another break. When we come back, we'll dive a little bit more into discipline, but also touch a lot more on the stages of parenting. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back, everybody. We're joined by Dr. Carol, and earlier we were talking about discipline and some of the ways in which parents should approach disciplining their children. And it got me curious, how should a parent respond when a child is completely out of control and you just can't seem to get them to do anything? How do you escalate discipline in that sense?
I think that in the moment when it happens, a parent will do what they need to do in the moment. But more important than doing what they are doing at that moment is being able again to go back later on and reflect and say and ask yourself, how did I get here? Okay, and that's the most important thing. How did I get here? If it's a child who is throwing a tantrum, you know, a 2-year-old at the supermarket, how did we get there? There are many reasons. I mean, a child will throw a tantrum at the supermarket. Are they hungry? Are they tired? Have you had a discussion before you go to the supermarket that this and that will, I'm not going to buy you this sweet, or I'm not going to do this and that. So again, there is no perfect solution in the moment when it is happening, because you need to do what you need to do as the parent who is the authority to sort of save that situation as it is happening. The more important thing, and this is what we prepare parents for at Being Parenting, is to be able to go back and ask, what happened? What led us to that? It went out of control. What can we do different? Does this child need training? Is this child going through a season? Do you know our children go through seasons? Okay, they get stressed out in school. I mean, there's too much going on. They go for a soccer match and they lose. Okay, and they come home and they're just really sad, and they don't even know why they're sad, and they're just angry, and then they just have these weird moods that, you know, and outbursts, and they're crying a lot. And so we need to be able to in Being Parenting, we say use intense moments with our children. We transform them into teachable moments for ourselves and for the child, because the intense moments will come.
Right.
No matter what we use as a discipline strategies, the intense moments will come, because our children are human and they have feelings. Okay, and so they will have ineffective ways of expressing the way they expressing their frustrations, expressing how they are feeling. And so in the moment when it happens, as a parent who is the authority, you do what you need to do to stop the situation, but please don't let it stop there. Go back first of all and do yourself an audit. How did we get there? And then once you're clear about that, bring your child in. I mean, I've had many discussions with my son about what happened yesterday and the way we had this really intense moment. And you're like, you know what? That wasn't really nice. I mean, even mom didn't really respond nicely there. React nicely, because I say there's a difference between reacting and respond. And so mom didn't really react, you know, and you know, mom got really, really frustrated at that point. And this is why mommy got frustrated. And then you let him express himself as well. And you, of course, it's also age appropriate. Okay, and saying, yeah, but now what can we do differently?
Wow,
because
so it's a discussion.
Exactly, it's a discussion. Yeah.
Point of growth and learning moment.
For both of you, and you're giving your child tools to communicate, even in future, about a conflict they will have with a spouse, with a partner, with a workmate, to be able to go back and say, wait a minute, this could have gone differently. And what am I carrying out of this situation?
You said something that I want us to dig deeper, and that is children go through seasons. And should parenting styles change depending on, say, the age or the personality of the child? Are you supposed to be flexible in that sense?
Yes. I think the flexibility is very important. One of the frustrations we go through as parents is being rigid about a certain way to discipline, and being rigid about the fact that it worked so perfectly with my firstborn. What is this? What is going on with this one? Where are they coming from? But we're just doing it the same way, you know. And you know, we're how many? 7 billion.
That's true.
Each
plus
one of
7
us.
billion plus,
Each one of us is different. There's no person that is exactly the same as the other. Okay, so yes, we do have to have guiding principles on how we want to parent.
And those should be consistent.
Yeah, those should be consistent, and those should come from you as a parent. What are your values? What are your core values? Okay, and so we also need to be clear about that space. What are my core values? But then once you're clear about that, then you know that every child is going to respond to your values differently and to your method differently. Temperament comes in. There are those who are quiet. There are those who are out there and, you know, loud and will express it very different from the others. There are those who are just somehow naturally born very principled and very orderly, and at 4 years they can take a glass of water and put the glass back where it belongs, and you're like, wow, you know. And then along comes your second child and everything is everywhere. So we need to be able, first of all, to just take a deep breath as parents and know that it is not my fault that a child is a certain way, that they also come packaged differently by God, because God has put them with unique qualities, and therefore I need to be able to just breathe in and say, I probably need to be this kind of parent for this child and this kind of parent for this child.
Right. So would you then say that, is that also part of the different stages of parenting or that parents go through? And can you talk to us about that a little?
Now, there are stages of growth for children, you know, like developmental stages. Okay, and therefore we need to be aware that the first 8-10 years of life, you are more in charge and in control, and therefore you're making more decisions, and therefore, because you're the parent, you're in authority and all that, and they require a lot more guidance, a lot more of you planting and investing into them. But then as they start getting towards preteen and teenage, definitely you want to be able to start loosening out a little. And why? Because you're also preparing them to be independent out there. Okay, so there are those stages in terms of developmentally, are they ready to make a decision at 4 years? You know, big decisions? Of course not. Okay,
not even close.
Yeah, but they can make certain decisions. Okay, you know, little ones, like
little ones.
You know, and so you start relinquishing control with time as you go. Okay, so you need to be able to be aware of that, so that you're not also being over controlling with a teenage. Okay, and still expecting them to think a certain way and to do things a very certain specific way, because really you want to be able to prepare them to be independent.
Right, and to learn to make these decisions on their own.
Yes. So those are the stages of, you know, the developmental
parenting,
stages. But in terms of a parent, do you go through stages? I think because sometimes you will have several children, and therefore a child expects you to show up differently as you are interacting with them. I would think of the parent in terms of the seasons they go through. And you know, the seasons are not necessarily just how you're parenting. It's also seasons in how you are growing as a person. And you need to be able to realize that maybe when my child was younger, I had more time and I would do this and that, but now my responsibilities are increasing, so this is another season. How do I need to transition into that season? How do I transition in a season where my child is coming from a 2-parent family and suddenly I am parenting alone, or we are co-parenting? How do I transition into that season? How do I transition into a season where there are less responsibilities at work, or we're not okay financially as we were before? And you need to be able to figure out, because how you're interpreting those spaces also impact on how your child is interpreting, or your children are, you know, even showing up.
Okay. There's some theories that say it's important for mom and dad to take on a role of friend, at least at some point, and release themselves of being the parent. What do you think about that? Should you be a parent, or should you be a friend?
I like that question, because I feel like people really want to draw a dividing line between parent and friend, you know? And I find that just almost impossible to actually draw a line, because when you really think about it, friendship is a relationship, parenting is a relationship. We need to be able to use the qualities of a relationship in both spaces. Okay, am I forgiving of myself? Am I forgiving of this person? Because I think I always like someone to elaborate a little bit more when they say, what do you mean by friend? Or what do you mean by parent? Because you need to really be able to show up with the qualities that are necessary for a relationship to be healthy, either way. But if you're asking, should I just be like, I don't know if you watch, Gilmore Girls, where, we're just on the same page, and, I can...
Gilmore Girls, I was like, what is that relationship? And can I have some of that?
Exactly.
They were just like friends.
Yeah.
It felt more friends than anything. But I wonder if maybe that worked because the character on the show was a very specific kind of person, and they were very focused and diligent and intentional and disciplined and hardworking, and so it was easy to not be so worried about them in that light. And I wonder if some children need a little bit more guidance. And if you can you play both? Can you really play both roles, parent and friend?
You are supposed to exhibit traits of friendship as a parent to your child. The dividing line is how much authority and control do I relinquish? Because when we think about friends, we think now there is no boundaries, there's no authority, there's no control, and absolutely that should not be a quality or part of a parenting relationship. But you can still be your child's friend at 2. I mean, I don't know if you've had a 3-year-old say, "Mommy, you're not my friend anymore," because there's a way they're thinking how a friendship should be. And so I say, let's knock off that dividing line between parenting and friendship, and let's be able to show up healthily and give qualities of a healthy relationship, and be the person in authority and be the person who is giving direction at whatever age.
So I'm curious to know, Dr. Carol, does parenting differ between moms and dads? Should there be like in a situation where you take on that style, you play good cop, I'll play bad cop, or something like that? Or can you tell us a little bit more about when there's two people coming with both their baggages and both their experiences, and both the tips and the iceberg, and then trying to parent?
And again, I hear that a lot. He's playing the good cop, now I have to be the bad cop. And then sometimes it's the other way around. It's mommy who is the good cop and daddy's the bad cop. And I don't know, growing up it was wait till your dad gets home. So it really...
in our household it was my mom.
No
one messed with my mama, no.
And I think that we shouldn't try to be different in how we parent, because our personalities and our temperaments, and like you rightly said, we also come in with our own values and ideas and baggage in how to parent. But I sometimes I feel like the good cop, bad cop space has a lot, I'm sorry, to do with how the parents are relating as opposed to how they need to show up as children. And in fact, one of the things...
show up for their children, you mean?
For
their children,
Yes. And so if usually when there's a constant clash when it comes to discipline, when there's a constant clash constantly between parents, then it becomes more a relationship problem than a discipline problem. Okay, and so if a parent wants to show up as good cop as opposed to the other bad cop, then we need to step back again. Like I said, we look at the parent first. We need to step back and say, what's going on there? What's the need that you're trying to meet in this space?
And do you do that from an individual basis, or are you having a conversation with your partner? When you're trying to understand what's going on there, is it you by yourself trying to understand, or are you like, hey, dude, what's going on there?
I think it has to start with you, first of all, figuring it out so that you're able even to know what it is that you want to talk about with your partner. And so, so the dynamics of good cop, bad cop are very much there. And what I always say, because even in our parenting classes, you will find sometimes the dad only has come or the mom only has come. What I really try to get the parents to understand is that in and of themselves, they are enough. And what they need to do is to be able to, first of all, learn that self-awareness space, and then the decisions they make, be consistent with their decision, with your decision. Yeah. Be the one who is constantly doing what you need to do intentionally and purposefully.
And is it important that they have a united front, both parents?
I think it makes a difference when you show up both of you with a united front. It is important because it gives the message that mom and dad are together. However, you may not necessarily be able to convince the other person to come on board. And therefore, in such situations, just keep being the consistent parent, because children respond to consistency. So if one child, if one parent is buying sweets and doing all this thing, and you're the one who is forever struggling with structure
vegetables,
and
go to bed on time,
exactly, and all that. Where you get a problem is now when you start think, now he's winning them over more than me. But when you're clear that I am enough and I know what I am doing, actually children respond to consistency more than the sweets and this, because those ones are sort of, they're not constant. Okay, they're not going to be constant. But children respond to consistency. They're drawn to consistency.
Right. I've heard that. That actually routines from the very beginning is what they feel safe in. If there's like, oh, we always used to do this every Saturday, and every first Sunday of the month, this is what we would do, and that's what really forms the core. Wow, Dr. Carol, thank you so much. Thank you. How can people be a part of Being Parenting, the program?
You can find us online to beingparenting.com, still also on Instagram, Being Parenting, on Twitter, Being Parenting, and we'll be giving you more information about our next open day. And if you come to our website, there's a free series on discipline, 5 reasons why your discipline may not be working, and that one you can just log in and get it.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Carol. I think my key takeaway from this conversation is that it really starts from a keen sense of self-awareness, and that whether you're parenting, whether you're trying to discipline, whether you're trying to have a relationship, a friendship with your child, it really just starts from what is that iceberg? What is the rest of me? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? Where does that come from? So, with that said, we all have a lot of work to do. Parents or not, I almost feel like even if you're not a parent, you have some key takeaways from this conversation.
That's correct, actually. Our parents usually say, this is helping me even at my place of work and all that.
Exactly,
so
in other relationships.
in other relationships.
Well, thank you all for watching, and thank you to Parkin by Radisson for the fabulous space. I'm not going to leave you with our TBT, which involves a whole bunch of candy from way back when. Things like Goody Goody, Patcore, man, those things used to be everything for me, and I'd try and like sneak in as much sweet stuff as I could. It's funny, like some of these things should come back. Like Goody Goody, I think you really played us. Come back, please. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow, Friday, for a really exciting show. Bye.